Oppo has spent the last few generations of its R lineup building devices that defy the boundaries of design. The R5 was about thinness, the R7 about elegance and reliability, and the R7 Plus, well, let's just say that the size is just part of the story. I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocketnow, here with our full review of the Oppo R7 Plus. The plus denominator has been commonly used these days as a way to refer to the larger sibling of a particular product. We see it today with the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus and Apple's new iPhones as well. Oppo's approach to the word plus is different though, as the Oppo R7 Plus is not only larger than the R7, but substantially different in its design and particularly its features. To start, if Oppo would have decided to simply grow the R7, we would have had a much larger phone. We do see the same 2.5D glass finish on the sides and the curved edges, and we also see the aircraft-grade magnesium aluminum alloy here that was very neat on the R7. And we have a very cool gold finish that kind of looks rose gold from an angle, but that's where the design similarities end. The Oppo R7 Plus sports a gigantic 6-inch 1080p Super AMOLED display that provides gorgeous color saturation, great viewing angles, and very deep blacks. But since it takes up 80% of the screen-to-body ratio, this device doesn't really feel much larger than your average Galaxy Note, only it's a little bit taller. Oppo's decision to go with software buttons for the first time ever is highly praised here, and if you think the display lacks bezels, well, it does and it doesn't. What Oppo did here is that it colored the inner bezel below the glass in a black color, and therefore creating an illusion that's rather convenient when watching a video, for example. And yes, at the screen size, better pixel saturation would have been nice, but at 367 pixels per inch, this device is still within Retina territory. Under the hood, we have a 1.5 GHz octa-core Snapdragon 615 processor matched by 3 GB of RAM, 32 GB of expandable storage via microSD, and that microSD module is swappable to a second nano SIM that's also convenient if you want dual SIMs instead of extra storage. The added size was also fully taken advantage of, as there is a massive 4100 mAh battery here that's also coupled by VOOC's rapid charging technology, so you could go from 0 to 80 in around 30 minutes. We have a 13 megapixel Sony IMX278 camera at the back and an 8 megapixel OmniVision shooter at the front. And below that primary camera, we also have a fingerprint scanner that's actually capacitive, meaning that even though you can't really press it as a button, the phone does detect your fingerprint on touch and activates the display and also the unlocking mechanism. The sensor is just as accurate as we saw with the Oppo N3 as well, so I'd highly recommend you stick to using this option for unlocking your phone. Overall, yes, this phone is massive for some, and you could also say that this gorgeous design would have been benefited by a better processor, but as we dive deeper, you'll notice that these quirks weren't really much of a problem when actually using the phone. Oppo has proven with the R7 that it has taken its approach to software rather seriously, and we do notice that with the R7 Plus. ColorOS 2.1 running on top of Android 5.1.1 Lollipop has not only proven to be reliable, but also unique. It does retain the same speed and fluidity that we noticed with the R7 over the last few months, but Oppo has decided to strip Lollipop away from many of its annoyances. For one, the volume controls are unified, so yeah, that problem is solved here, but even more interesting is that you also have the same KitKat style notifications at the status bar at the top, and not those annoying cards that you can't really control on other devices running Lollipop. You can fully control which notifications you want and which you don't, which is also rather convenient, and this also applies to the lock screen, sort of like what you see on an iPhone. Oppo also continues to bundle a lot of software, like for example its own encryption application that now even allows you to block apps with your fingerprint, and you also get the same suite of apps that we saw with the R7, like for example a full backup assistant, voice recorder, etc. Overall, even though many of us are Android purists and don't really like Android skins, this is one of the best skins that I've ever used, and for those of you that are moving away from an iPhone to your first Android smartphone, I would highly recommend that you give a try to this particular version of ColorOS. I've spent the last few weeks testing the Oppo R7 Plus as my daily driver, and my experience has been rather pleasant for the most part. Playing graphics-intensive games on the R7 Plus seems to actually work better than on its smaller sibling, even though, remember, we have the same Snapdragon 615 processor here. You will notice some minor stutter here and there on some games. You have to remember the Snapdragon 615 is not really noticeable for its power, but mostly for its efficiency. And we do notice it here, particularly because this device doesn't really heat up when playing games. The large 4100 mAh battery did prove to be rather good when playing these games as well, and for the usual texting and emailing, the device would end the day at 50% charge, which is great, and then VOOC rapid charging took care of the rest. Phone calls were also rather pleasant on this device, sporting one of the loudest earpieces I've ever tested, though the placement of the speaker at the back isn't necessarily convenient because it gets easily muffled by your finger. Something you also have to consider is that not all devices sport the same LTE band, so this particular unit that we received for review does not sport the ones in the United States. Just keep this in mind in case you actually depend on LTE like I do. When it comes to the camera, I honestly couldn't tell much of a difference between these photos and the ones you find on any iPhone, and that's actually a good thing. The camera sensor does tend to overexpose some of the photos at times though, but other features like HDR and other of the Pro modes included do prove to be quite useful. Your experience filming video would also be pleasant, as we did notice that the device is rather smooth at zooming in and out of subjects in addition to focusing on them, and handling differing lighting situations as well. And overall, I guess this is the best way to describe Oppo's approach to the new R7 Plus. This definitely isn't a device for everyone given its size and heft, and for those of you who care about a smaller device, the R7 will suit you just fine. Both devices are extremely similar to each other when it comes to its specifications, but the things that are different are actually the ones that incline me to choose the larger Oppo R7 Plus. I value a reliable device when it comes to software that can also help me get through a rough day of work and media consumption without having to worry about battery life, storage, or even security thanks to a fingerprint scanner. I think Oppo did a great job in giving users the option to choose between the smaller R7 and this larger R7 Plus, but I'll definitely keep this R7 Plus as my daily driver going forward. Folks, we've got a lot of coverage, not just of Oppo, but of every other smartphone in the market right now, so make sure you follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You can follow me on Twitter, Jaime_Rivera, on Instagram at Jaime Rivera. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I am Jaime Rivera. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.